Folks, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show. And what an honor it is to bring back a guy who seemingly was part of every record that this radio host absolutely loves as an arranger. In some cases, he played, but really, at the end of the day, to see the canon and the body of work that this gentleman has done and the people that he has been graced by and crossed paths with and collaborated with, to me, it kind of almost embodies the essence of that word that we refer to as jazz. David Matthews, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, thank you so much for your kind words. And I'm really happy to be able to have this experience chatting with you in front of whoever our audience may be.
Absolutely, and it will go on well after we've left this planet, so it's a really meaningful thing. I have to ask you about when you first crossed paths with Blue Mitchell.
With Blue Mitchell, okay, that was kind of a big accident. I had done some recordings with a woman. I think her name was Helen Mitchell or something like that.
Really?
And she was associated with a small jazz record label in New York, which right now I can't pull the name out. But so anyway, Blue Mitchell was signed to that record. And this woman, Helen, I guess, introduced me to the president of that small jazz record label, and he said, "So well, he needs to record Blue Mitchell right away because jazz fans don't necessarily understand that the whole jazz world is not only music, but it's a business."
That's right. That's right.
There's these record companies. They put up money to make money for their company and the stockholders of their company. So okay. So
I want to help you out for a minute. I don't know who the woman is, but were you approached by Bob Shad from Mainstream? Is that who it was?
Well, yes, she hooked me up with Bob Shad at Mainstream.
I just want to tell you, the reason I only started out the conversation like that, that record, Many Shades of Blue, is like my favorite record. Really, I mean, it's like really one of my favorite records, and it has a lot to do with the it has a lot to do with the horn arrangements, which I know you were definitely a part of.
First of all, I'm very happy to hear you say that, and I'm really happy when people let me know that they enjoy what I do.
Dude. I mean, it was all the cats, man. It was all the cats. It was Madison, I think Herb Bushler, but I mean the horn arrangements on that. It's just the funkiest. Anyway, regardless, it wasn't like you were. I guess, yeah, you can finish this story, but I mean, when I see all the work that you did with Black musicians, do you feel like, can you just talk about how you were accepted into that community itself? I mean, obviously you were already part of James Brown's contingent. I don't necessarily consider that jazz, but I'm always fascinated because, listen, man, I interviewed Liebman, Grossman, Brecker. I've interviewed jazz was a Black subculture through the 70s. And I always am curious about, how you felt. I mean, you worked with a lot of these cats, but did you feel completely embraced or accepted by the Black jazz?
I have. Well, first, let me say this first. I have always felt totally accepted by the Black musicians that I've worked with.
Beautiful.
I never once in my entire career got any bad vibe like racial vibes. Never once.
Oh,
So I loved the music that they were making, and they respected me. I don't know how they felt about, but they at least they respected me and my contribution to the black music community.
that's
So there's
beautiful. That's beautiful.
that. Okay, now let me say this. Uh, when I was, let's see, maybe 14, 13, 14, 15, something like that, I heard this record on a jukebox somewhere in wherever I lived in Kentucky, and it was Honky Tonk by Bill Doggett.
Oh my dude, I think that was recorded at King Records, wasn't it?
I believe it very likely was. So
Right on.
so
Yeah.
I so here I am like a 13-year-old kid, and I hear somewhere on the radio or however I hear this song Honky Tonk, and the groove, the feeling was a totally new experience to me. I've never heard anything like that, and it totally affected me. Like I said, that's I want to do that kind of
Wow.
feeling. I want to do it. So that Bill Doggett with his somewhat of a hit record back in the like late
Absolutely. Yeah. You're saying that with that, because I think in our first conversation you talked about some rhythms that you were hearing, intoxicating rhythms, but that and was that like was he kicking bass pedals? Was there a bass player on that, or was it just like a organ trio thing?
I don't really know, but I'm guessing it was an organ trio. I'm guessing he was doing that stuff all with his feet, but
And
I don't know.
you like the bounce to it. What was so into? I just want you to, as best you can, articulate what it was that was like made you say, "I want to
Yeah,
do
okay.
that."
Now, the answer I'm going to give you is untranslatable. What I felt,
Yeah, I did.
what I, what I felt was the groove. Now, I don't know if that word is translatable into
No,
English.
can I be honest with
What,
you? It's more applicable now than ever. Even
well,
my
I
parents,
mean,
it's
maybe
so
so,
there, man.
but
It's so there.
I
It's so there.
felt that groove from that recording of Honky Tonk by Bill Doggett. And when I heard that, uh, I had been into music since I was like 3 years old, but when I heard that, it totally changed my idea of what music that I loved was all about. That groove uh, stole my heart. You know what I mean?
That grew, dude. That's a great name for a tune, man. I mean, that is unbelievable. I mean,
That group
that's
stole
so
my heart.
cool.
Well, it really did, man. It changed my life when I heard and felt that groove, and that's what. Well, definitions are difficult, but uh, African uh, music, American music, which was African influence, uh, 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 the African aspect of it uh, brought that groove into American music, and and that just totally captivated me. So
That is
from
so.
that moment
I mean
on,
that.
I
Oh.
only wanted to make music that had a groove.
That is and that's been your mantra essentially since that time. I mean, go. I don't want to. We could parse hairs till the cows come home, but um, do you believe John Hendricks? I don't know if you ever crossed paths with the late great singer from Lambert
Well,
Hendricks.
I absolutely Lambert Hendricks and Ross was one of my favorite. Was probably my only favorite vocal group
Yeah, exactly.
in the history of music.
No, but he said when I interviewed him, he said that you know without the Sicilians, there'd be no jazz in America. It basically that these guys, even though they were running liquor, drugs, guns, their supper clubs, the clubs in New Orleans, all the way in the Midwest. I mean, they they sponsor jazz. He said, and to be completely blunt, he said they didn't treat us like niggers. He said they recognized us as geniuses. And I just wondered, from your point of view, I mean, your career being set aside because you had to sing for your supper, were you hip? Were you aware? And if so, how were you aware that this music that, well, I mean, you live in Japan now, but the music that was made, really America's only art form, was never really consumed on a commerce level in the States as much. In fact, as you know, it was devoured, and most people survived as musicians through going to Europe, Japan. I just wonder if you could talk about that disconnect between this incredible music that we're just doing hours of interviews about, so to speak, and the fact that it was never really embraced, especially uh, the way it should be in this country, in the United
Well,
States.
okay. Okay. First things first. I am and have always been a professional jazz musician. Okay. Knowing my my experience in my life of how America has accepted or not accepted jazz, that, I mean, I know more about that than you do or anybody else.
No, please
I
talk
was
to me. Yeah,
there.
absolutely, dude.
I was
Absolutely.
there doing it and and seeing how the American public had no clue or interest in what I was doing. You know what I mean? So yes, the well, Africans were brought to America as slaves like 300 years ago, whatever it was, and a large part of American culture uh, has not forgiven, has not. What's the right way to say it?
I think they just haven't accepted the dark reality of what our
Right,
history is. Yeah.
but those Africans, their culture, which which slave traders brought to America, gave a whole new American culture to the Americans who were willing to understand it and accept it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel I hate to use the word blessed, but I feel extremely lucky that I happen to fall into the crowd that that accepted, not only accepted, but like
Embraced. Yeah,
like
embraced.
embraced that part of African American culture. And when I first heard that record of the Honky Tonk, and I said to myself, I didn't say anything, but that's the shit. That's it. That's
Right.
the groove. That's what I'm looking for. And finally, my loving that kind of feeling was what made me not only acceptable, but uh, uh, okay, acceptable to James Brown, because I loved his shit way before I knew who James Brown was.
Right. That's
You
right.
know,
That's right. Yeah.
the the mixing of African and a certain part of American culture together in America created something that that once I heard it, understood it, and felt it, made me I couldn't do anything else but join that.
You were completely drunk with sound and ready to go.
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, so let's just go through a couple terms because I mean, we have this highly classicalized Eurocentric part of North America. All of a sudden, I've interviewed all these, Charlie Neville and Bill Summers. I've done a lot of work on diaspora. I've done a lot of work on how much, you know, during slavery, how much they tried to get rid, basically strip all these tribes of their native roots and their rituals and their traditions. In fact, in Congo Square, and you may know this, I mean, they gave them 2 hours on a Sunday to bang drums, and then they fired a cannon off and that signified all the slaves had to go back to their plantations. If a slave was caught with a drum during non-music hours, they cut his hands off in the public square. So I mean, when you really come to, there's a couple words I want to talk about as it relates to the African influence in jazz music, and that's pulse and like the cycle of, you know, the idea that I don't know if this makes any sense, but you know, that idea that any note can be the one, that they're the downbeat. To me, the best. I don't care if it's Charles Tolliver, Roswell Rudd, Randy Weston, list goes on and on. I mean, most of their music, after a while, collectively, everybody's losing the one, but everybody comes back in at the same time, and it's like that is the African experience. But to you, what is that? What is that thing that separates it from just sort of a formula trip, sort of classicalized chamber music kind of setting?
Okay, that's difficult.
What separated um, you know, well, like even James Brown, I mean, that pulse, how was that pulse different than, I mean, is it just fair to say that European classical music didn't um, didn't have the kind of angular rhythm that was so, I mean, honky tonk's one example, but there's plenty more. Um, it's just there's this line that because the deeper you get into the groove, as we've been talking about, as a musician, it gets greasier, and all I want is music that's greasy. But
Yeah,
white America really likes clean, pacified, simple
right,
music. I mean,
right.
Eddie Henderson said that like when in '64 when Train was blowing to the moon, you know, there a lot of the audience was white. Women would stand up and be like, "Make him stop! Make him stop!" It was too primal. It was too visceral. You can riff on this any way you want. It's just as a
Yeah, yeah,
journalist,
yeah,
I'm just like, I listen to hip hop today. Some people would, I don't listen to a lot of it. Some people would say that's like modern day folk music. But, you know, to me, there was some kind of sophistication going on amidst the civil rights movement with guys like Dolphy and Hutchins, all these guys saying, you know, we're going to make sophisticated, rhythmic, greasy music. And that seemed like it was not just a threat to white America, but they just didn't even want to even go there because then they'd have to feel. God forbid they'd have to feel, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah. Uh,
Floor is
oh,
yours. Go wherever you want, man.
okay. Well, first of all, I think I went to Africa with James Brown.
Wow.
I spent a week in
Wow.
Nigeria,
Wow.
and so I heard uh, some, you know, a bunch of African music at that. We were talking like 20, 25 years ago. Uh, but, but so I heard what was happening in Africa at that time, and uh, it wasn't much. The I think the combination of African people and the experience of African people in America
Yes.
created this situation where jazz and funk could exist. I don't think it. I don't think it could exist in Africa, and it wouldn't exist in America with white people only. But the combination of of of, uh, can I say, slave culture and the mixture of that with European harmony, and the mixture of those two things together came up with something totally brand new in the world. And I'm talking about jazz and funk and African influenced music in America.
I think you just nailed it, actually.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, no, I mean that hold on. Did you go did you go with Brown in the 70s to Nigeria? When did you go there?
Yeah, well, let me see. I started with James, working with James in 1970, and it was like probably 1973 or 4 was when he went to Africa. I did a whole tour. I only was on that tour for a week. What I had been doing for James at that time period was picking up brass sections all over the country.
Yeah, right.
Augment the James Brown show.
I love it. Yeah, go ahead.
And so he took me to Africa to pick up brass sections to augment the show. Except there was none of the African cats could read, so they couldn't play the James Brown show. So after a week, he sent me back home. So that was my experience in Africa with James.
You didn't by chance go to Lagos or Lagos, did you?
I went to Lagos, yes.
Did you because at that time the cat down there was Fela Kuti. You guys go to his shrine at all, or was that even?
Okay, let me tell you about this.
Yes, please.
In Lagos, he had a club where he and his band performed.
Yeah, he had like 26 wives dancing there too. Yeah, unbelievable. Go ahead, continue.
Oh, well, I don't know about the wives, but
yeah.
So I went with Bootsy Collins and probably Catfish. I can't remember, but definitely Bootsy. And we went to Fela's club, and there was a courtyard kind of surrounded by this club that had a little room in it that the band members would go to and then smoke a little dope on the intermissions.
Sure.
And so I went into this. So there I was with fucking Fela Kuti.
Dude, this is the greatest story I've. David Matthews in Lagos with Fela, in between. I cannot, because dude, you could not have that, because
it was amazing. It was like it was impossible, but there I was.
It was no, but I want to be clear. This would be even more crazy. Were you? How did you even get? Were you hip to him before you went to Africa? He was.
I had no idea about Fela Kuti.
Oh, I love this.
When I got there,
dude. I love
James. James took me to Africa to get a horn section to augment the show. Except we couldn't find the horn section, so I stayed there for a week. And there I was in Lagos for a week, and I guess the African cats hooked up with the James Brown band real quick. As soon as we got the plane landed in Lagos from New York, I guess. Landed in Lagos, and there was probably, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 African people waiting to meet the plane.
Oh my gosh!
So we me and James and the band got off the plane, and there was like 3,000 people there clapping and shit. It was unbelievable.
I mean, you went to Never Ever Land on me right there. That's I'm not surprised. I'm just curious, like, was it ever considered, because Fela was a great horn player, but his horn sections couldn't read either, like from the Shrine band?
Well, uh,
You know, it was, you know what it is, like
that
some,
wait,
I
hold
just, I
on.
feel
That
like yeah, go
that
ahead.
I don't know. Anyway, we could not get a band who could beat the James Brown song. But uh,
Yeah,
the the band that Fela had in his Fela had this club, this joint. Oh, that's the place where I went
yeah, you know,
to
it was called the
the
Shrine. Yeah, the
okay.
Shrine. Yeah.
It was called the Shrine. Okay, I didn't know that. Anyway, so so uh so Fela had a band with like uh let's see, it was like five or six horns and six or seven percussionists, African percussionists, and and his stuff was very James Brown like. So me and Boosie go to his joint and they start playing and everybody's clapping and the Fela's band was swinging his ass off and like five or six horns all it was all James Brown type stuff
Exactly.
but with an African groove on it. It meant it was fucking amazing.
I cannot, I do, because when I first started this journey, I mean, I spent lots of days in my buddy's backyard playing table tennis, listening to Fela records from that time period.
Yep.
For you to see that in person, with Bootsy, with the band, I mean, that to me, in and of itself, I think that's legendary. That's beyond
Oh,
legendary. That's
it
unreal.
it is fucking amazing. It's like I'm one of the few people in the world who could experience that exact situation.
Well, yeah. What's interesting is that the reason I even brought it up was because at that time, a little bit earlier actually, uh, you know, um, Masakela had gone and made a record with Fela in Lagos in '72.
Yeah,
Then later on, Roy Ayers did. So, we weren't fully interconnected, uh, but yet um, there were American musicians that were beginning to, and there was also that sort of, I hate that word, Black Power movement, but you had this sort of idea that Africa being the center of the world and education and trying to fuse things together was just the most fertile time, really, in music. I mean, like to me, so many electronic, synthesizers and things hadn't really completely taken over. There was still just so much humanity in the music,
yeah.
and it was just like burning. But I mean, it was
And
burning.
those words you just said were I think the first time I ever heard them was when I was in Lagos. Was Africa is the center of the world, and like that's a shocking and truthful
Message, yeah.
realization. Oh man,
Matthews, dude, you're blowing. I mean, I don't even. So were you? I mean, you didn't have any really. You couldn't really track anybody down. Were you bummed to go home after a week? I wouldn't. I would have wanted to go to the shrine every night, dude.
oh, well, I had no power. I mean, James said
I
go
know.
home,
I
so I
know.
went home. But yes, I'm bummed I couldn't have spent another month there. I because I was a white guy who worked on the James Brown show. Some young African cats are like like probably 20, 25 years old. Cats like wanted to meet me and hang out with me because this is a totally different experience than anything they had ever experienced. This white cat with the James Brown show. So, I mean, it was uh, that whole. Well, first of all, the whole James Brown thing was an amazing experience to me. But that African part of it was one really, really amazing part of my experience with James Brown.
I'm so happy to have vetted that with you. Um, just a few things going back to uh, just because I mean that's otherworldly. But going back to sort of both feet on the ground after you cut Grudneck Whipper Jenny, you did a lot of stuff with Brown. There's a couple of actually I talked to Clyde, rest in peace, about this woman too, is Lynn Collins.
Yes.
But I for the record, because I've talked to, some of this is some of this may have come after you, but eventually, uh, guys like Denny Sywell, who was the original drummer in Wings, he played on a couple of James Brown tracks. Alan Schwartzberg did. Uh, I'm just wondering about
Hey, man.
I'm just
You should have Alan Schwartzberg.
well, I mean, he's like a surrogate uncle to me. But my question.
Hang on a second, man. Hang on
Yeah.
a second. So,
Yeah.
and let's see, in about 1975 or so, I was living in New York, and I married my second wife, and so I bought. I bought a house in Montauk, Long Island.
Are you kidding me? I grew up. I grew up in Stony Brook.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, dude, you're going way out. You're going way
I still
out.
own half of a house in
Wow.
in Montauk, and about a 5 minute drive away from my house, Alan Schwartzberg had a house.
Oh my dude, I love it, dude.
My second wife was Jewish, and she was really happy to. Alan, of course, Alan is Jewish, and my second wife became really tight friends with Susan Schwartzberg, Alan's wife. So, I know Alan very, very well.
I mean, he's just like we've done a bunch of interviews, and I met him in person, just such a beautiful cat.
Oh, man, he is, man. And if you ever see him again or talk to him again, please say hello from me, because we were good buddies.
Dude, I mean, I you better believe it. I just wanted you to talk about. I don't care all the stuff you did with Brown. First of all, did people? A couple questions. When stuff came out on the People label, did it get recorded? Where was the studio? Was that King Studios? And then ultimately, how would you? Not that you were engineering the sessions, but was everybody hitting live? I feel like the idea of I've talked to guys in like Blood, Sweat, and Tears from the early '70s, like Dave Bargeron and stuff, and they, I was under the impression that everybody was hitting live, but he would say that the horn players would get the rhythm section would lay down their tracks, and the horn players they jam up the tunes before they record, so they were live ready, but they'd piece it together. But from like in those early '70s periods, were there sessions that you can point to, Lynn Collins, Vicki Anderson, where everybody just they all hit at the same time?
Almost never. Almost always at that time. Once multi-track recording became the thing, almost always we put down the rhythm tracks, we put down the horn tracks, put down the vocals. So it was one group at a time, almost always. Occasionally, you'd have a session where the whole band played together. Almost never were the singers live with the band. They overdub later in those days.
Did you? And so was there? Can you point to any time where it? I guess with vocals, is it because there were vocals? I'm just curious about to me, your generation, while it's not we're not talking about, Buddy Bolden and Mingus and Milt Hinton, but you guys still prided yourselves on, I don't know, that idea that in my mind, you hit live and that jazz aesthetic that the first take is always the best. Can you talk about a session that you did, even if you played on it, where it was like that? Because
well, in those days, that was starting like around 1970, 72, something like that. From that time period on, almost always the rhythm section recorded first, and then the horn section. Almost always the vocals were last. Is that what you want to hear?
Absolutely. You know, I don't necessarily, that's not the answer I would like to hear, but it's the reality of it.
But that's how it worked
So let's just
in that
talk. Well, I want you to
particular.
talk about that though. Like, so you're telling me that, like, could just talk about a session where, like, basically what I'm trying to get at is that did Clyde, Jabo, or whoever you were, did the rhythm sections make up their own parts, so to speak, for those grooves? I mean, you said in the first interview he kind of Clyde had the James Brown groove before we even knew what that was. But were those cats basically inventing their own parts?
Uh, yes, except uh, uh, somebody was in charge, somebody was in control. In the case of my session, I was the one basically who was in control, and so so I would go like sing a feel to the drummer. Uh, Actually, I almost always wrote out the whole bass part.
Really?
The my feeling was that the bass part controlled the groove of the whole tune, and so I wrote out the whole bass parts uh, in most of the stuff I've recorded in my entire career, and uh, and then the drummer would hear the bass part, and he would do the bass drum to go along with the bass part, and the guitar player would hear the chord, the harmony from the bass, and sometimes I would sing stuff to the guitar player, but usually it wasn't necessary. Those cats were quite capable musicians. So 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 basically, I would show up in sessions with the arrangement being basically the written out bass part and my idea of what everybody else should do and sing it to
That is so insanely classic, man. I mean,
them.
but I mean, like, what's kind of cool, I mean, what's really remarkable, and maybe I just like you to talk about it more, is that you'd have like, would you be just sort of walking down the street and like you'd have these grooves kind of in your head and you'd write them out? I mean, dude, you made because I got to believe that when Brown walked into the studio, he probably hadn't heard these rhythm tracks yet, right? I mean, he was just going to riff over the top of them, but
Right.
he just
He
said,
had not heard them at all.
so did
He
he?
had
Yeah.
maybe he had told me what kind of feeling he wanted to achieve with, and then I would basically write out these bass parts and and have a really great rhythm section to realize these parts. So so basically I'd count it off, and the bass player would read his part, and drum would hear the where the accents were, and go along with the groove, and then probably tomorrow I'd have horns over, and the next day singers, and so it finally all came together, and then finally James was on the road all the time in those days, so sometimes 2 weeks later he would show up. Uh, he would let the producer, Bud Hobgood was the name of the producer. You know that name?
We talked about he is he now I do because of you, but I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'd be there at the studio, uh, and the tracks would already have been recorded. Occasionally, occasionally we would do it live, but mostly it was the tracks were recorded, and James would show up and sing over it.
He did. Would you say that he was kind of riffing off the cuff, or did he have the lyrics written out, or was it just kind of all coming stream of
Uh,
consciousness?
I I don't know, but I think mostly he had the somebody had written out lyrics. And they probably had given, I can't remember, but they probably had given me the lyrics so I would know the phone
Right, right.
to put the tune into.
When he said he would describe the groove he wanted, would he say it more like I want this sort of Sly Stone feel? Would he make allusions to different?
No,
No.
no, no, no. He would like stomp his foot and clap his hand in kind of this kind of groove.
Yeah, right. Yeah, medium bounce or yeah. I just
Yeah,
I
well, he was not a he knew nothing about uh, notation of music and that kind of stuff. Uh, his shit was all very natural groove kind of stuff. So he'd show up, and I would have provided him with a groove, and he would like it or not like it, and he would sing it. If he didn't like it, then we'd do it again next week.
The man was completely on fire. But were you were you based out of New York City at that time, or were you still down in Cincinnati?
Well, the first year or two, I was in Cincinnati, and let's see, I I started with James Brown in late '69 in
69, yeah.
Cincinnati, and I think in early '75 I moved to New York.
Early 75. You know what I'm curious about? Did
What?
you, because I know you were, I mean, you were working for James, but was there like a club uh, that you could go out? I mean, I think that was the magical part of ultimately you put together that the stuff in New York and recorded, on Muse and stuff like that. But the magical part about your generation of musicians is that you could really sing for yourself or in the studios during the day with hosts of different types of work, and then at night you could go out and play the music that we sort of alluded to before, that that music of jazz, original music. Did you was there a club in that early 70s period that you were able to get stuff out of your system playing live?
Yes, there was, and the name of that club was New Dillies.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that?
NEW uh, uh, capital DILLY apostrophe S.
New Dillies.
So there was a guy named Dilly Siegel was his name, and I think he was probably wealthy. I didn't really know him that well, and so he uh, started this club, and he called it New Dillies after himself. And so let's see, when I got back from Europe in 1968, and let's see, I had met this woman in Germany when I was living in Wiesbaden, and she went to school in Santa Fe, and so I went out to Santa Fe just to meet her. And when I got there, she had rented a house for us. I didn't expect it.
Wait,
So
I'm sorry, Santa Fe, New Mexico?
Santa Fe, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I had met this chick, and she said, "Well, why don't you come to Santa Fe?" So I go out to Santa. She's got a house rented for us to live in.
Oh
So
my God,
she became my first wife.
damn,
Okay.
dude.
Yeah.
Oh.
So then, well, okay, her father, who was a 5-star, 4-star general in the Air Force, a big wig, started wondering what was going on. He said he was going to come out to Santa Fe to see what was going on. And so I decided it's time for me to leave. So
Time
I
for you
went
to get
back
on
to
out of town. Yeah.
I went back to Cincinnati where I had gone to college.
Mhm.
And a couple of weeks later, she followed me and we got married. Okay, let's see. Okay, so there I am living in Mount Adams in Cincinnati, was the kind of hippie area
Yeah,
there.
totally. Yeah.
You know Mount Adams? You
No,
know
you
about it?
we talked about this in the
Because
set
okay,
one. Yeah, there were like
so
all the clubs were all the good music clubs were up there.
right.
Yeah.
I had known this sax player before I went to Europe. I'd known this sax player, Jimmy McGarry. He was the well, there was two top jazz musicians in Cincinnati in that generation. One of them was the sax player, Jimmy McGarry. The other was a guitar player named Cal Collins.
Dude, the nastiest guitar player ever.
Oh, you know about Cal?
Well, I know his records, dude. The guy was
Oh
so
yeah, man, he was one stone motherfucker. And
dude, these cats were like, you know, the other cat that I know I wanted to not to get too sidetracked, but there's I'm looking for it here. Anyway, continue on. So no, but you talked about McGarry, Cal Collins. The reason I asked about the early 70s nightclub scene after you had finished your day gigs is because, I mean, at that time, Jan Hammer was fashioning the Mini Moog. I mean, I sort of envisioned David Matthews' rig to have like Fender Rhodes, Moog synths. Like, how big was your rig when you were playing, just, you know, playing at these clubs in Mount Adams?
well, I mean that's all I had was the Fender Rhodes. And I would
You just had you didn't have like huge synth. I mean, I know synths were, but like that
no. All I had was the Fender Rhodes,
I love it.
and
That's all you need, you know.
and I would put it in a cab and take it off.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, man, the cats in New York before, like a year or two before you moved there, guys like Hubert Eves, they told me it was like they put the thing in the cab. By the time they finish, they get $10 for the gig. Then they go home. And, you know, you make like no money, dude. You know, it's like your backs, and it's just so sick.
One of the first gigs I had in New York didn't last very long, but have you ever heard the name Sam Brown?
Dude, him and Donald McDonald, those guys. Sam Brown is my like I never knew him, but I feel like I did.
Those were the cats: Sam Brown, Donald McDonald. Anyway, so
But you had a gig with Sam Brown. You and Sam Brown were in a band together.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I think my contractor recommended Sam Brown to me for recording sessions. I was doing a lot of recording for James Brown at the time. So I called Sam, and his groove was ferocious, and I just, if he wasn't available, I would schedule the recording session for another day. But so this went on for a year or so. Let me see. So I got this. Well, somehow me and Sam formed a duo, which became a trio. My Fender Rhodes, his electric guitar, and a bass player, John Beal. Have you heard that name?
What's his name?
John Beal. Anyway.
Wow, dude, this is. Do you have tapes? I need to hear tapes of that.
Huh?
I need to hear recordings of that trio.
I'm
kidding. That is. Wait, so I just want to be clear. Did you say that Matthews? I mean that Sam, that he was your first call guitar guy for Brown Records, and if he wasn't available, you'd wait till the next day or the next when he was available?
I said that, yes.
Wow.
No, his time was so strong.
Oh my God.
So
because he played in these, like, I don't know, I'll stop babbling, but he played in, like, his background, at least a little bit. Was he from University of Cincinnati or something? I feel like he played in like
I don't think he was, but he played with some of the top cats, Gary Burton and I can't remember who, but like some of the absolute top fusion cats of that generation.
Absolutely,
He
dude. He
was
was
the first
ridiculous.
call.
He
And
also,
so,
yeah, he also
so,
played
so
with like Bill Evans and stuff. He's insane.
I believe, I believe, yes, he did. Uh, I recommended him to Bill Evans.
Yeah, because
Helen,
he did. There was this seminal album from left to right with Bill on piano and Fender Rhodes and Sam Brown's playing guitar on. It's
right.
unreal.
Bill Evans' manager was named Helen Keene. You know that name?
Yeah, I do know that name. Yeah.
Okay, so I did. Helen and I produced some records together for Muse Records, and
And
so I.
arguably my favorite label of all time.
Oh, really? Okay,
I
well,
mean, a Cobblestone Muse. I mean, like
yep.
we're
Well,
gonna. I mean,
so
we're gonna do an entire we're gonna do an entire session on CTI Muse. But go ahead, continue. You worked on some.
okay. So I recorded for Muse. My first two albums I ever recorded, except for the Go to the Quiver Jenny, well, the first two jazz albums were on Muse. So, okay,
Yeah,
so
that Whipper Jenny album is a big that's holy grail stuff right there. But yeah, the stuff that I'm never the next time I see that big band album, I'm gonna buy it. I don't care if it's $100 from 75. I mean, dude, Matthews is all over the place. But yeah, so you were telling me that early 70s you worked with Helen on a couple of albums for Muse or this.
yeah. I think Helen and I produced two Mark Murphy albums.
Oh my, dude, my favorite. Are you kidding? Wait. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah,
Maybe the one that where he's singing like Red Clay and stuff.
right. I produced that one.
Dude, that's my favorite freaking Mark Murphy. No,
Yeah,
Mark. No, actually, there's another one that I think Jimmy Madison and Sue Evans are on it,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and it's
And
like
Dave Sanborn and Mike Brecker. I
yeah, but no,
call those
I'm talking about the one before the Red Clay one. It was like he did this song called Chicken Road. I forget the name of the album. I don't know if you're doing that one. I
oh,
haven't.
that was before me, I think.
Okay. So you were working. Go ahead. I don't want to. Basically you told Helen that Sam Brown was a nasty dude, and Bill he'd be a
Right, and
good.
right, and so we in fact Helen, uh what's the right word, respected Sam's musicality, his guitar, uh, his, and she wanted to produce Sam Brown records and push him as an artist. We never quite got it together, but she really loved the way Sam Brown plays, which I did too. It was so much fun.
Dude, he was just the silkiest but greasiest, nastiest dude ever.
Absolutely,
I was gonna. I
absolutely.
mean, so you were getting gigs and probably flying to New York a lot in the early 70s before you actually moved there in late 74, 75. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, let me no.
I mean,
No.
like with Mark Murphy on Muse. I mean, you weren't living in New York at that time. I don't think. Maybe you
We
were.
well,
Yeah, that Mark, but that one with Red Clay and Maiden Voyage. That's I think
I
75.
think I
That's
was living in New
the
York
most
then. Yeah.
amazing. I mean, you were on the razor's edge at that time, Matthews. It's unreal, man. I mean, the fact that you were in Nigeria, hanging with Fela, playing, arranging for Brown. I mean, dude, you can't get this is holy grail stuff, man.
Oh man, when I think back about it, I did all that shit. So I don't think of that Holy Grail, but when I look back at it, holy fuck.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's so cool because, like, I'm just saying, you can you can look back on it and just realize that, when you're living something, actually, it's never the way that it seems from the outside. It's just when you look at the milieu of music, the amount of work that was still available for musicians at that time, the fact that all the original masters were still alive, the fact that the bean counters hadn't completely gotten involved with the music making process. I mean, it to me, like, all those things were antecedents for burning. I mean, really, Matthews. I mean, the only period of time. This is kind of pigeonholing me because I love music from I love all music, but that early '70s period, man, absolutely visceral, burning stuff. We can get into later
Well,
how things do. You
well,
just really busy. You
I'll
gotta be
tell you,
working.
man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. I recognize and feel how lucky I was to have been part of the New York music scene during those years.
Oh,
I mean, it's staggering. My luck of being there. Do you know what Jim and Andy's was?
well, I mean, dude. First of all, I believe Andy was a cat. Jim and Andy, they.
So
Dude,
know.
no, Kenny. When I interviewed
I
Kenny,
went to fucking Jim and Andy's every night.
so you're blowing, yeah, because I mean Chuck Rainey, I've interviewed him a bunch. He'd just go there for a meal. You could cash checks there. The phone would ring.
Yeah.
There'd be a gig. You go upstairs. The guy would give
Yeah.
you. It was. It was so.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was freaking. It was on. That is. I just before my. I forget. You talk about McGarry, right? This
Yeah.
guy Jim McGarry. So, and I realized that you weren't, in the same state. I had an opportunity to interview this cat, such a beautiful player. His father, the guy I'm talking about is Joe Lovano. But did you know Tony Big T Lovano?
Tony, no.
And he was as big as McGarry. As McGarry was Cincinnati, Joe's father was the king of Cleveland.
Of Cleveland.
And I just wonder if that ever. I wanted to ask you that because Tony Lovano was like the way you talk about
never
McGarry.
heard that name.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, so you wow.
I met Joe when I went. They used to have summer arranging clinics at Eastman School of Music in Rochester.
Oh yeah.
And I met Joe Lovano at one of those times when I was going to arranging classes in Rochester. But I don't know his father.
Yeah, so that was just the way you talk about McGarry is the way. I mean, Joe, it is his father, but he also said the guy was just a burning bebopper, like he was the man of Cleveland. But when you like, I'm just trying to think here, like even when you were traveling and taking gigs and spending a weekend or weeks in New York recording, and before you moved there, right around the time you moved there, what was Harlem like at that point? I mean, were there still? I mean, when you go back in time, like Dr. Lonnie Smith, rest in peace, the guy was, playing Small's Paradise, or the Apollo was thriving again. This was in the '60s, but even in that early '70s period, did you wind up going up? Did you ever check out what was going on up there? Eventually, and obviously, it's come to a point today where it's so gentrified they pushed all the culture off the street. But at that time, I mean, that was arguably the East Coast birthplace of jazz.
Possibly so. Okay. Well, I worked with James at the Apollo.
Oh my God, dude! You're blowing me away, dude. You're blowing me away.
Could be 10 times.
Now, were you in the horn section, or you as in just finding horn sections? Or I'm sorry, did you play piano, or were you just arranging?
No, I hired the augmented horn section and rehearsed them and conducted them.
That is so freaking classic. That is so badass, dude.
And so, well, I was at that time a little bit afraid of Harlem.
Yeah, I'm sure.
well, it was ignorance on my part, but I was a little bit afraid of it.
Yeah,
And
intimidated. I mean, well, that's fine. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, well, okay. So in fact, one time, let me, yeah, the third or fourth time I worked the Apollo with James. Uh, the cab driver let me off in front of the Apollo, and I went into the gate where you go in, and the guy said, well, and I said, well, I'm part of the band. He said, well, you can't come in here. You gotta go around back. And I said to myself, I'm not going around the fucking Apollo
Yeah,
Theater.
right, dude. Come let me in,
And
man.
I said, wait a minute. If I don't go in, the show won't go on. I'm the conductor. And the guy says, no, you can't get. Finally, somebody recognized me and said, he's cool. And so I went in.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
But, okay. So, okay, let me see.
What was it like? So at that time, you're talking like 69, 70 at the
Like
Apollo?
that. Well,
Yeah.
no, 70, 72, something like that.
So what was the pulse like then? Just, I mean, even so, when you weren't being hassled by a bouncer, when you actually were able to have sort of, what was the vibe like there in your mind in Harlem?
What the vibe with the whole James Brown scene?
Just in general, like, I mean,
It
was
was
it,
cool as can be. It was like
yeah, yeah,
absolutely no issues.
wow, so him. So
Yeah,
freak
well, you know,
and so I just am trying to get a visual of this because uh you would you like James would be sort of out front and you'd be maybe off on the side of the stage conducting uh go
okay,
ahead.
usually, so James Brown would be up front, and right behind him would be the JBs, Fred
Right.
and those cats. And
Maceo.
then a little bit behind that, off on the maybe the right side of the stage, would be a horn section of like 8, 10 cats, and and I would have rehearsed them, and then I would stand in front of them during the show and tell them when to start and when to stop. So that's what went on.
That is so, and then it would be what, like 3 sets a night, or how would that work?
Uh, I think it was usually 2 sets a night. Yeah.
Did you so as far as like couple cats, did you ever get a chance to meet Miles or Train, or did you get to see them live? Coltrane.
Okay. I met Miles and shook hands with him, and this Japanese producer who had probably friends with Miles. In fact, I think this guy had. I think this producer had come to New York and said, "Miles, can I stay over at your pad?" Miles said, "No." Finally, after the third or fourth time, Miles let this cat sleep in his pad. So okay, uh, so Miles was playing in Tokyo, and uh, I went to the show, and uh, this producer, a friend of mine, said to Miles that this guy was James Brown's arranger, and Miles looked at me kind of askance and said, "The James Brown," and then he turned around and walked off. So, so yes,
He was, dude, the
I
guy,
met Miles.
yeah,
Huh?
yeah. Go ahead, continue.
I met Miles. Okay.
That's so class. I mean, that he was like that with. He could have been so irascible with people. I mean, the guy was such a Zen master. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's all.
And with like, did you what was, I mean, because Cleveland, going back to Lovano for a minute, I mean, that was a place that was part of the not even the Chitlin circuit, but would you say that like venerable jazzers would swing? Like, did Train come through? Did Miles come through Cincy, or was it kind of off the grid a little bit jazz wise? Was it more of a R&B
Okay,
blues?
okay. I don't remember Miles coming to Cincinnati, but I heard Train at a black jazz club in Cincinnati.
What was that? Was he playing like a 40-minute tune with Elvin, or what was the time period like? I mean that.
I will not forget this. Uh, he played one of his famous ballads for 5 minutes.
Uh,
And,
My favorite things or something like that.
wait a minute. No, the first he played, what is
Naima
it?
or
No, it's a ballad. But anyway, and then he played my favorite thing for about 50 minutes or
oh
so.
my God,
And
dude.
it was fucking unbelievable. I
You
went
know,
with my best friend who was a jazz drummer, and so, I met this guy when the first day I got to Cincinnati to go to college. Uh, he was a jazz drummer and a French horn player, and I was a jazz piano player and a French horn player, and we're still good friends after 40 years. So he and I, Carmen's his name, Carmen and I went to Babe Baker's Jazz Corner in Cincinnati. And in fact, if you Google Babe Baker's Jazz Corner, it'll probably come up with that show that Coltrane
I'm
did.
doing it right after we finish this
Okay.
interview. I mean that's that. So
No, no,
this is my.
Babe Baker was a black guy who uh, opened this jazz club. Uh, and I remember him like talking to the audience. He says, I want to have a place where the spade cats and the old fake cats can come out together and
You
hear
know,
music.
man, that's what it's about, man. That to me, that's
Yeah,
America. That's America. I wish
yeah, yeah.
95% of people were like that, man.
Well, that's Babe Baker was that cat, and then uh, one of the few times Coltrane played outside of New York, I think, was at Babe Baker's Jazz Corner in Cincinnati,
Unbelievable.
and I heard it.
You know, okay, but we're gonna. I want to. We're gonna do. We have to do set three, Matthews. Believe it or not, we have a lot more to get to.
Okay.
But before I let you go, there's just my final question in this in this section. Like Kenny Barron would go to the Showboat in Philadelphia when he was younger and watch Train and Elvin duke it out for 40 minutes. He'd say they play one tune for 40 minutes and there were no repeated ideas, no repeated lines. It was just this insane full stream of consciousness. And the question I have is uh modern times moving up to today, my kids, a lot of kids today, they're learning to read music before they can hear the music. And as a result, people like Gary Bartz would say their ears are locked. You go back to a time when there was a lot of autodidacts. You might have been one of them. Charlie Parker would listen to every radio station and he'd learn to play every tune in every key. Didn't matter if it was country western, blues, jet, whatever. People's ears were huge. And as a result, everybody had their own individual sound. And when I listen to modern jazz players, what I hear, Matthews, is a homogenization of sound. And I don't want to paint with a broad brush. I know there's cats out there, but back in the day, you that everybody prided themselves on having their individual sound. And I wanted you to ask you if you thought that was because most cats grew up learning to hear the music first before they learned to read.
Yes, I think that is the case, uh, and I'm not going to say this is a bad thing, but the fact that there is a place called Berkeley,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a whole other ball of wax. No, I'm
that
telling you, I've had a
that
big problem with the
that
academy as well. Exactly. Go ahead.
that teaches cats how to play jazz. I mean, man, I didn't have uh, I had teachers, but I didn't have a curriculum to follow. Uh, I basically learned how to play jazz by improvising on my piano at home by myself
Exactly, dude. You made up the.
and,
There was no. Yeah.
and listening to records. And now you go to school. Well, if you go to school, you're going to have like 50 cats come out sounding all the same, you know?
Exactly, man. It's just so, and like that's the question is really at the core. Can you codify a language like jazz? I think it's so foolhardy. Setting aside whether there's even a career out there for people that go to Berkeley after Berkeley musically, can you really codify a street language? I mean, the best. I mean, you had major chops, and you're a very humble person, but the I mean, the best learning experiences was on the bandstand.
I believe that.
Well, then we're in full agreement.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I mean,
we can get into it later. I also feel like it's a really big issue, Matthews, because um, you have really decorated cats who are from your generation, and they're teaching now, and their educational experience on the bandstand with guys like J.J. Johnson, Freddie Hubbard, is diametrically opposite to what they're trying to teach these kids today. Plus, they don't want to be completely honest about it because if they bash the institutions that are paying them, they might lose their job. So it's like,
right.
it's a little I mean, we can get into it more, but I mean, we just cooked for another 75 minutes. Dude. They're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
What
Well,
there's no question. We can spend a whole chunk of time talking about the academy. Because I think more than just grousing about the academy, I think I want you to think about for set three things that younger cats can do organically without reinventing the wheel, that they can work on cutting above the morass and finding their own voice. I think that is just like that's the essence of jazz. I mean, I just remember David Garibaldi from Tower of Power, who was just like, I mean, he was a big band jazz guy. And, when he would play a gig, if somebody came up to him and said, this is the late 60s, oh man, you sounded great. You sounded just like so and so. He'd want to slit his wrists.
right.
He didn't want to sound like anybody. And now it's like people
Right.
are, and part of that's also the commercialization or the packaging or the branding of what you were talking about, this idea of it's a business and that. But let me ask you, are you free for part three on, it would be, so what is it, like 1:15 in the morning there right now?
It is 1:15 in the morning.
So it would be your Wednesday, right, midnight going into Thursday morning. So essentially the 7th going into the 8th, my morning on the 7th, midnight on the 7th going into the 8th for you. How does that look for you?
Wait a minute. Look at my calendar.
Basically not tomorrow, but the next day.
Okay, tomorrow is the 6th.
Well, it's actually the 6th already where you are.
Right. Well, it's like, yeah, it has been the 6th for an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So when is the next time you want to do this?
I want to do it not tomorrow, but I would like to do it on my Wednesday, the 7th at 8 a.m. Arizona time, midnight, going into the 8th your time on Thursday. Oh, no, Wednesday night, going into Thursday.
Wednesday night, my time. Day after tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tuesday.
Tomorrow's Tuesday, so it would be essentially going, it would be the wee morning hours of Thursday the 8th. We would finish it. Like it would be 1:15 on Thursday morning your time. Then when we would finish.
It looks like I'm cool. Hang on.
Yeah.
So they're talking about my 8th at midnight. Is that right?
Let's see. Well, I really wish I could articulate this.
Or my 7th.
It would be it was so like right now it's my 5th and your 6th, right? So
Right.
and then
That's my
I mean, but
sixth.
we let's just put it this way: do you consider midnight the same date or the day after?
I don't know.
So I would wake up on my Wednesday the 7th, and at 8 a.m. we will do that on my Wednesday the 7th. It would be the end, right at the beginnings of your Thursday the 8th. Midnight.
So be my 7th at midnight.
That's right. And by the time we wrap up, you'll be an hour and 15 minutes into the 8th.
Right. Okay. Let's see. So that's my day after tomorrow at midnight. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So, well, yes. First of all, I got no plans at that time. So,
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you are an animal. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean,
send me email. I think I understand, but
I'll send you the invite. It'll make it a lot clearer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think I know what it is.
Yeah. No,
Tomorrow.
we're good. We got a lot more.
Tomorrow night, I think.
Yeah. Not tomorrow night. The night after.
The night after tomorrow.
The night after tomorrow night. I'll send it when I send you the invite. It'll be Arizona time, but you'll be able to figure it out.
Okay.
And
I'll
yeah.
see you then.
Hey man, we're building a library here, Matthews. Much love, man.
Oh, good, man. No, I'm enjoying these. Remembering this.
Yeah, no. Just remember that because for you guys, of course, it's in the past, but my show is all about promotion, and so that future generations can know how real music was and can be made. So much love, man. We'll do it again.
Great. So day after tomorrow.
Yes, looking forward
midnight,
to it. Yes, absolutely.
Just to confirm. I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. It's really remembering shit that I went through that I enjoyed back then, and now I'm enjoying it again.
I love it. And hopefully pulling some stuff out of you that you haven't talked about before, which is great.
I think you have, and maybe there'll be more.
Oh, dude. Hey, man. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.